Good morning, everyone. My name's Derek Shaky. I'm with the Collector Car Network, and today I'm here at the Scottsdale Civic Center for the 7th Arizona Concours d'Elegance. The theme of this show is the art of automotive engineering, so we are surrounded by dozens of beautiful classic vintage automobiles. And this one in particular has got a very interesting story, very interesting history. Perhaps some of you out there have never seen one of these. I was aware of these cars, but I had never seen one in person, but that changed today. And I am fortunate to be standing next to Ron Chardella. He's the membership chairman for the Iso Bizzarini Owners Group.
Perfect. Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. So Ron's gonna, give us a little history on his past with cars, but also give us the story behind this particular car, which is a 1974 Iso Grifo. So Ron, I will turn it over to you.
Okay, wonderful. Well, I think my main car history, I grew up wanting to be an auto mechanic, loved cars, always worked on cars. My brothers had, one brother had a Chevelle SS, another brother had a GTO, so muscle cars was what I was into. My first car was a 69 Roadrunner. That was 1975. It was already beat up and trashed, but I loved it because it had a Holly carbon and Edelbrock manifold and headers, and it was loud and fast. And
good combo.
Yeah, good combination. So graduated from high school to go up to Northern California to Chico for college, and I bought a Volkswagen Bug. So it was this huge, but great gas mileage. It was a fun little car. And so then my wife and I got married. We ended up with some BMW 2002s. We bought a little Alfa Sprint Veloce. We loved the Italian car. The quality wasn't quite there the same as the BMWs, and we were like, okay. We bought a little Triumph TR4, which was fun. Of course, everything was always a beat-up car that we could afford, and I was, Band-Aids and duct tape to keep them on the road. And anyhow, we got to a point where we were ready for another car in 1983, and I was telling my wife, I want to get a Mustang. I really wanted a GT500, but back then the GT500s were so much more than GT350s. I said, maybe I could get a GT350 Shelby, and rightly so at the time, my wife said, that's kind of like a high school kid's car, a Mustang. This was 1983. She said, I really, really liked our Alfa and our Triumph. Couldn't we get like an Italian sports car? I mean, I love the wire wheels and all that. I was like, I really want a muscle car. We met a gentleman named Winston Goodfellow, who my wife actually introduced me to because she worked at a bank, and that's where they had the savings account. And Winston told her about these Isos, Italian cars with American engines. And I said, well, let's find out about that. We ended up going to a show. We met Winston. We saw the cars. And Winston had one for sale, 1970 Iso Grifo Targa Top. The first about 350-ish Grifos were all built with Chevrolet engines. So we went over to look at this car Winston had for sale, and he pulls the cover off of it, and here's wire wheels, beautiful red Italian car, and my wife looks at me and she goes, now that's an Italian sports car. And I go, it's beautiful. Winston goes over, pumps the throttle a couple of times, starts it up, and whoop, boom, 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 boom. I hear this small block Corvette 350 horse motor loping, and I looked at her and I went, that's my muscle car. And I said, we're buying this car. I don't know how we're going to do it, but we're going to buy this car. That was 42 years ago, and we've had, I think, 22 or 23 Isos come and go from our garage over that amount of time, and have about 10 of them right now in various stages of parts cars, restoration projects, presentable cars, and that type of thing. So I became the membership chairman of the club because I love these cars so much. We have a worldwide network through Facebook groups and that type of thing. Because most people, they've never seen them, or like you said, well, I've seen them in pictures, or I've heard this name. And a lot of people think, well, what is it, just some kit car or something like that? See, Iso started, was in business as Iso Thermos, and they were a refrigeration company. They made pretty good money, and then they saw that there was a market for scooters, little scooters in Italy after the war. And so they went into the scooter business, and they produced They were the number 3 producer in Italy. There was Vespa, Lambretta, and Iso. And so they made a tremendous amount of scooters. And then they made little utility vehicles. And they got the idea to make a motorcycle that was covered so people could stay dry in the rain, and that they could actually put some groceries in it and take their wife and kids. And they developed the Isetta bubble car, which, the Steve Urkel
the BMW,
and the BMW Isetta. In Italy, they were struggling to sell them. And so BMW came along and said, look, we have a motorcycle engine and all this, and BMW was about to go out of business. And BMW struck a deal with Iso to where they could license and build Isettas. And BMW went on to build like 200,000 of them. It completely was a cash cow for BMW and kept BMW in business. BMW and Iso were always very, very close. Iso Rivolta, who owned Iso, made a lot of money and said, he had Maseratis, he had Ferraris, he had Jaguars, and he said, I like the Italian cars, they're fast, but I'm always having to throw money in front of them. They're not reliable. And he said, I like the Jaguar because it's more comfortable and it seems to be a little bit more reliable, but it's not as fast and exciting. He said, couldn't we make a car that was all the best of all of that put together and was reliable? He happened to look at the Gordon Keeble, which used a Corvette motor in a Italian designed body with an English designed chassis. They loved the idea, but they decided to go their own way and build their own car. But that gave them the idea of the 327 Corvette engine. They hired Giotto Bizzarini, who had walked out of Ferrari in the big walkout in 1961, and in 62 they developed the Iso Rivolta GT, which is a 2+2, and it was the first monocoque suspension unibody where the whole car was stamped, made, welded together for the structural rigidity with the 327 Corvette engines. And they were supposed to sell a bunch of them in the United States, but all the deals fell through, people died. It was just like one tragic event after the next, to where Iso by 1963, 4, 5 was just trying to see, what are we gonna do with these cars we've built? They developed the Grifo for the 63 Turin show to be the showstopper on the Bertoni stand, where everybody would go, wow, what is that? And then hopefully come to Iso and say, oh, well, this other car drives as fast, but it's got a back seat and a trunk. That helped them start selling Rivoltas, but there was so much of a demand for the show car that this car went into production in 1965, slightly modified, and they built a total of about 400 of them from 1965 to 1974. This is the very last Grifo built by the factory. And what happened over time is in 1970, the Maserati Ghibli was taking a lot of sales from Grifos because it was more modern, same designer, Giorgetto Giugiaro, but it was a little bit more modern, the sloping with the pop-up or the headlight, it just looked more modern than the Grifo. And so they decided, let's put some pop-up headlights. They extended about this far and they put pop-up headlights to give it a little more modern look. And it worked because they sold almost another 100 cars with this. In 1969, they decided they wanted to put a 427 big block, and that engine is higher, so they had to put this massive hood to let air in and to clear the air cleaner. So the big block cars are called 7 liters as the 427. In 1972, they switched to Ford 351 Cobra Jet engines. So the last 33 Grifos got an even higher hood and the 351 Ford Cobra Jet motors. And this very last one, it's a pretty special car. Only 2 got factory power steering, ZF power steering. This is one of those. 5-speed ZF box, every option that you could get, factory air conditioning. So it's a pretty spectacular car. A good friend of mine owns it, and I take care of it for him, and we brought it out here today to show the crowd and hopefully let them enjoy it.
It looks like you've done a great job watching after it, and
Thank you.
I understand from the notes in the booklet about this event that this was restored in 2000.
The car was actually restored in about 1995 in England. That's the interior, and pretty much all the mechanicals and everything were done then. It came over, and then in 2000, that's when my friend bought it. And then about 12 years later, it was accepted for at the Quail in Monterey, a pretty high-end show.
Oh, yeah.
And so the owner decided he wanted to get it repainted. So in early 2012, it was repainted, and then since then, it's just been maintained. So it's a 13-year-old paint job that still looks pretty nice, and the interior work done from 1995.
And is this a factory color, or was this a custom?
No, this is a custom color. He just liked it. He wanted a very 70s electric blue, to match the vibe of the car, and they did custom color matching and chose this color, and everybody comes by and just loves the color. They're like, oh my gosh, wow, exciting.
Yeah,
So,
it definitely caught my attention.
Yeah.
And I was talking with our media director, Dustin, and he said, yeah, it kind of reminds me of Grabber Blue. It's not quite the same, but it
Yep.
reminds me of that.
Sure.
And it makes sense given the Ford power plant, the
Yep.
70s.
Yep.
Yeah, so that combination makes sense, and it's definitely eye-catching. Not just the color, the shade of blue, but just that beautiful, very light tan interior.
Good combination.
Yeah.
Good combination for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it runs amazing. These are great cars to drive. It's a DD on rear end, so you have all the benefit of a solid rear axle, but then all the benefit of independent. Well, all the weight is off the wheels, and you got braking. It's a Jaguar Salisbury differential that's got the inboard brakes mounted up, so you have very little weight on the wheels, which allows them to be very lively for great handling. And that's what Giotto Bizzarini was all about. He wanted to build race cars, but he loved working with Iso because he felt like he put all the best of what he knew into the Iso cars, and then it became a production car that anybody could have. Anybody could, well, not anybody, because back then, it was only $9,000 back then. Well, so was a house. But for the elite people that would buy Ferraris and Maseratis and all this, this was an alternative that was a little bit less money and just dead on reliable. I mean, you can go 100,000 miles on these engines. A tune-up, a guy could go down to Pep Boys and buy spark plugs and points in a condenser and do a tune-up for $29.95, or go to the local Chevy dealership or Ford dealership and say, it's a 72 Ford, Cobra Jet motor. It just needs to be tuned up, versus, well, we'll pull the engine out and two distributors, and $3,000 later, or now $20,000 later, you've tuned up your engine and all that. So that was his goal, and I think he hit that. It was just timing. Timing was in 1974, everybody was basically going out of business. All the Italian manufacturers had either been, taken over by Fiat, Citroën, Chrysler, or Lamborghini, and Iso just didn't. They didn't want to get taken over. They brought in a partner. That partner basically put the company out of business, and so it's still alive. Iso is still alive today, but for all those years, they haven't manufactured cars, just some specialty cars. So,
well, that's where enthusiasts like you step in. You take care of these cars. You know what you're talking about. You know what they need. You keep them alive. You keep them on the road, even if people don't know what it is.
Yeah.
And so I got to ask you, aside from that, what is the typical reaction people have to this car when you're out in it?
It's like just thumbs up and questioning looks. What? You could just see people going, and even here, people will come up and they'll look, and they're looking at angles, they're looking at different things. If they see it from the back, sometimes they think Alfa Romeo because it's got the same tail lights as the Alfa GTV. But yeah, people, they've got this puzzled look on their face with big thumbs up and big smiles at the same time. And of course, you hear that American V8 roar, and that helps too. So.
Now I got to ask you, I think I know the answer to this, but what is your absolute favorite thing about this car?
Wow. So I love Grifos. I think if you're a passionate car person, there's emotions that you get when you see something, you sit in it, whatever, and all that. To me, the Grifo is just a perfect combination of beautiful curves on a car, every little detail. You look like little details like this right here. The way this door cuts in, and when you open the door, you've got all this, I mean, the inside is, and that from the factory, same way. All these little details of a hand-built car, but I mean, every one of these was handmade, no different than in the 20s and 30s and 40s, the Bugattis and everything else. It's a hand-built car in a factory, designed to do that. And I mean, that's just, somebody put their heart and soul and everything into them, and I get that out of it. I love them all. I mean, I know of most all the cars in the world, have seen a lot of them, have been to Italy 3 times now, back to where the factory was, all the old people, some of the old mechanics that worked on the cars, and so I think for me it's the passion. It's just the passion. I love every one of them.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see that, definitely. And are there any updates that are coming for this particular car?
So, for this particular car, I think we're just, he probably doesn't drive it as much now, and that's why I have it here. So this car might actually be for sale in the coming future. For right now, we're just enjoying it. There's one other little twist that's actually pretty cool. Renzo Rivolta owned and started Iso. His son Piero Rivolta took over in 1966 because Renzo died. His father died. Piero was 25 years old and took over running the company. Piero has a daughter named Mirella Rivolta. Mirella Rivolta was introduced to Andrea Zagato of Zagato, and a romance blossomed. They got married, and so Zagato, Mirella is with her husband Andrea running Zagato, and Iso Rivolta is still in business, and they are producing a new Iso Rivolta GTZ. I think there's been about 8 or 10 of them made over the last 4, 5, 6 years, and so the company is, in essence, still in business, and we'll see where it goes from there, what Zagato and Rivolta do together in the future, which is exciting, very exciting for all of us that have these cars and love the history and love them.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Have you seen one of those in person?
Yeah, and we actually went to the Zagato factory. I've seen 2 of them that were in the United States, and then we went to the Zagato factory for a tour and saw how they do it and all that, and Corvette power plant, very true to the original design, and very amazing, very, very cool.
Oh, wonderful. Well, Ron, thank you. Ron, thank you very much for joining us here and giving us your time and your expertise and background. Fascinating car, and learned a lot today, and I'm sure all of you out there did as well. So, Ron, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
And thank you for watching. Stay tuned to the Collector Car Network for more videos.
Hey guys, thanks so much for watching our video. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and comment down below your thoughts. Remember, if you want to collect a car of your own, check out our website at classiccars.com, which is our online marketplace with over 30,000 listings live on the site. Also, be sure to check out our sister website at autohunter.com, which is our 7-day online auction. Thanks again, and we'll see you guys in the next video.